Mr. Brooks, your eyes may be better than mine. That telephone, is there a number? Or is it a name? Can you tell, Dr. Coleman? So I know Attorney Palmer said he'll join us by phone.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mrs. Lewis.
All right, thank you.
Dr. Malone, is the volume from the speaker, the microphones any better for you now? Or is it about the same?
A little bit. I've got a fan running behind me, so it's probably more of an issue on my end than yours.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our work session for the Board of Trustees for the Greenwood LaFleur Consolidated School District. I ask that we bow our head for a moment of silent prayer. Amen. Mrs. Lewis, do you have all of your documents with you so that you can follow along?
I do not, but I will be there shortly.
Okay. Mr. Brooks.
Approval of school board minutes.
And let's go back, if you don't mind, Mr. Brooks. For number 3, colleagues, if you remember at our regular meeting last month, we had a number of policies that we adopted based upon recommendations from MSBA, as well as some policies that we needed to clean up for the district. And I do know that we asked if Ms. Rimmer and or Attorney Palmer could get those updates made on our webpage for the policy section. I'm not certain if Attorney Palmer has access to our webpage. Do you know? Do you? Okay. All right, good deal. Thank you so much. Any questions, colleagues? Are there any other policies that we need to look at right now that you all are aware of? If not, we can add those prior to the board meeting. Turn your mic on and speak to it.
With the social media policy, we have not looked at that particular policy. I would like us to, colleagues, maybe review the policy regarding social media for students, parents, and educators.
Can you make a note of that for us, Mrs. Rimmer? Thank you, Dr. Moore. Mr. Brooks, number 4.
Approval of board minutes.
And we should have that information in our packet, correct? Ms. Rimmer? Okay. Okay, so we'll have it for Tuesday? Okay. And of course, we will review it ourselves and refer to Attorney Palmer to make sure that they're accurate. Number 5, Mr. Brooks.
Interim superintendent's report. Are there any questions?
Colleagues, are there any questions? Or Mr. Brooks, if you have somebody from these departments, if they want to go ahead and speak now, which, they would not have to repeat themselves on Tuesday unless there's some.
Mr. Howard, would you?
I believe Mr. Piper is online, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir, I am. Is it?
Now he's on here for project updates with ESSER, but would you all like to go now? Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Is that okay with you, Mr. Piper?
Sure,
Okay.
sure. You want me to go ahead or Mr. Howard first?
I'm not gonna get between you all.
Dorian, you go ahead.
He deferred to you, Mr. Howard. Mr. Piper, Mr. Howard is punting back to you. He wants you to go first.
Okay, all right, so look, I'll run through on your ESSER projects and the restroom renovations. The main thing I wanted to let you guys know is that we should be in good shape by the time school starts. Most of your schools, I think, will have 9 or 10 of them actually near substantial completion. Davis is gonna be close, and I think it's the 2 Threadgills that are gonna be close, but we will have restrooms there functioning, and I'll make sure that they have things cleaned up by the time students, show up. Similarly with HVAC, they are starting to make some good progress, primarily in the overheads at your Threadgill Elementary School. You know, a lot of the equipment's coming in, so we're gonna start seeing more progress there. I'm happy to report about that. On the carpet scope, this may be something we want to talk a little bit about. We did receive bids yesterday. We got bids from 2 different bidders. They were very close. I think if I can't remember the numbers exactly, but I want to say they were within a couple $1,000 in close to $1.9 million worth of bids. The apparent low bidder is Paul Jackson and Son out of Brookhaven, Mississippi. And I think just earlier today, the architect Darrell made a recommendation to Mr. Brooks and the board, and they're going to present that we should award the base bid and alternate 1, which includes the painting, to Paul Jackson and Son. Now the question is, and this may foster some discussion, it's my understanding that some of these schools that are included may close in the future. And so the question begs, do we really want to do that work? And for instance, I think Davis is one of the schools, and I would venture to guess that probably half the cost in this bid is affiliated with Davis.
Any questions or concerns, colleagues?
Yes,
Go
I
ahead, Ms. Hill.
have one. Who is that vendor and what is their location again?
Paul Jackson and Son, they're a general contractor. They're out of Brookhaven, Mississippi. They were the low bidder.
Okay, thank you.
That's something to consider. I don't know if you guys would want to award and then possibly be a change order, try to carve out some of that scope of work.
Any feedback, colleagues? I tend to agree with you, Mr. Pipper, in the sense of if there are plans moving forward to potentially not, well, I say repurpose or reconfigure some of our buildings, not continuing to put money in facilities that we may not use in the future or down the road. I do think once we have a clear understanding in what direction our bond issue will go and how soon that can be presented to the public to be acted on, then we will be in a better position to kind of determine how we move forward with some of these ERSA funds. But I do again recognize that we have time constraints where those funds have to be allocated and potentially spent by.
Well, and I can check before the next meeting. I can't remember how long they have to hold these bids. Typically, it's 60 days. Sometimes it could be as long as 90 days, which means the board could have a little time to consider whether or not you wanted to award, and still they'd have to honor those prices. Or we could even negotiate where we could award the contract and maybe with all the scope, and if we would defer or slow down some of the work of those schools in question until that bond issue passed. So we have some options, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, I just think it is wisdom to ensure that we can still have those bid prices, but again, not act so quickly that we're gonna make a real big mistake. We need to use wisdom with that, and I appreciate, Mr. Cooper, your advice and your experience that you're bringing forth with this, because I think that we have to look at the whole picture on this and do the work necessary right now. But if it doesn't have to be done right now and still be able to use those bids, we need to look at what decisions are going to be made. So thank you.
All right, well, I'll do some more discussion with the architect and the contractors and be able to have maybe a better recommendation for you Tuesday evening.
Thank you, Mr. Pitt. Anything else?
Yes, sir. The last thing is, in the last board meeting, and I guess I owe this board an apology for not being better prepared, but as you may recall, the district took on themselves a project to advertise through the reverse auction process to add some mechanical equipment to a number of other schools in the district that were separate and apart from the original ESSER package. Quite honestly, I was kind of relying on Mr. Howard that night, and he had a family emergency, and I wasn't prepared to answer some of your questions. In your packet, you will see this time I do have that reverse auction package in there that was solicited, and have the bids, and Dr. Bailey, just for instance, I can tell you from that, there's like 10 new units that'll go to the two Amanda Elsie schools. There's, I think, 3-4 units that go out at Davis Elementary, one that goes to LaFleur County High School, two that go to LaFleur County Elementary, and one that goes to Greenwood. And that bid price, or the reverse auction price, was $260,000. And what Mr. Howard was hoping to do was to have that scope of work covered by the ESSER funds that we have in the district, which we can do just like we can with the carpet. That would just, if those were both awarded, that'll just reduce the pot of money that's left for the window project that's currently out for bid.
And would it be your expectation, along with Mr. Howard, that if we don't act on both, that we at least take action on the HVAC work?
I would for sure do the HVAC. Yes, sir.
Any other questions, colleagues?
I have one comment, well, two comments. I had the opportunity to take a walk through at Threadgill last week. Are you pretty sure that we're going to be ready to open Threadgill? It's a lot of work to be done and a lot of stuff everywhere.
Yes, sir. We will be sure that they have it cleaned up and ready for students. They will not be complete with all the work. That work, I think your Threadgill schools right now are currently projected to be completed somewhere in the end of January or February of 24. But we will make sure that they have it cleaned up in a suitable condition for students.
Okay, the second question is, I think in the last meeting we were talking about a pumping station at Elsie, and I know it's a pumping station out there. Did you have the opportunity to go out there and check that?
Yes, sir. That lift station is basically on the very end leg of your system out there, and it pumps it from what it collects throughout the entire campus, if you will, to the city sewer system. What we're suggesting in here would be a lift station that would be more closer to campus and would actually use some of those same lines to pump it to the ultimate collection point of the current pump station.
So you're suggesting there's another pumping station, another lift station?
There is another one, but we would need a second one to better serve your campus.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Brooks, in regards to Mr. Pipper's mentioning of the work at Threadgill Elementary, is that where you went, Coach?
Yes.
And you know, that work not being totally completed. In the event that we need to have some alternatives or reconfigure some areas just to make sure that we can accommodate the students, has your administration thought about that and what that may look like?
Yeah, we looked at it when we talked to Howard and the other churches, and they assure us that we will be ready to start school.
Okay. Colleagues, any other questions for Mr. Pipper? Anything else for us, Mr. Pipper?
No, sir, that's it.
All right. Mr. Howard, anything for Mr. Pipper? We good? Thank you so much, Mr. Pipper.
All right.
Now, Mr. Brooks, can I ask Mr. Howard a question?
Sure.
All right, Mr. Howard, so I got some calls about the stadium at the floor, particularly the visitor side, with concerns about the sturdiness of the bleachers, if they are safe, potential lawsuit waiting to happen. Is that something your team is looking at, or is that athletics? Can you turn the mic on so everybody can hear?
If I'm not mistaken, Coach Gates has already in the process of purchasing the seats and putting it on that side.
Okay.
But he is working.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions, colleagues?
Mr. Howard, are you prepared to speak on the work that your department has done in July?
Say that again, Ms. Wood.
Are you prepared to speak tonight, we can do it for me, on the work that you have completed in July?
Yeah, I can. During the month of July, the maintenance department touched the hallways, restrooms at East, Claudine Brown, Greenwood High School, and Davis, and what could be touched up at Threadgill Elementary. Maintenance has also completed changing out all light fixtures in hallways and in classrooms at East Elementary. Maintenance in Upchurch is currently working at Amanda Elsie High School and Junior High School on all HVAC issues. We have 7 that are down at the high school and 3 that are down at on the junior high side.
Excuse me, Dr. Bailey, can you ask him to speak into the microphone?
He heard you loud and clear, Ms. Lewis.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Maintenance
I
in
can't hear
Upchurch.
him.
Maintenance in Upchurch currently working at Amanda Elsie High School and Junior High School on all HVAC issues. Maintenance is also working at LaFleur High and Junior High School with a few HVAC problems. Hoffman Locksmith has completed all of the doors that were not functioning properly on the campus on the high school side. The only thing left now on the high school side is to for Shannon to make sure all the locking devices are working properly. But we've been having several problems with that because the power goes in and out in Itta Bena, and therefore the locking devices go offline.
Then Mr. Howard, power go in and out everywhere, not just in Itta Bena.
And Itta Bena is every other
So
week.
you're talking about the electric
Yeah,
or
the
device?
keypad. The keypad. Maintenance is also completing finishing up the sped trailer, replacing paneling, carpet, and vanities at Amanda Elsie on the junior high side, and the entrance flooring of the sped trailer. And I attached below Upchurch's school reopening plan.
Colleagues, do you have any questions for Mr. Howard?
Mr. Howard, does the HVAC impact the airflow in the schools?
Yes, ma'am.
So will the schools be ready for, I see here where we have HVAC issues, will the air conditioning system be ready?
Well, we're ordering parts now for Amanda Elsie. But yes, Amanda Elsie will be up. If not, we will have portables installed in those classrooms. As far as Threadgill Elementary, they have Upchurch hasn't bothered any of the existing units. They're just installing the overheads. But everything that's at Threadgill Elementary will still be.
You got to speak in layman terms, overhead.
Yeah, I think I understand, the air conditioners.
Right.
I'm just concerned, I just didn't want our students, not to be without air.
They will have it.
Opening of school.
They will have air.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Howard, you can't put one of those portable units in there and it's 100 degrees outside. You may need 2.
If the circuit allows it to, we will put 2.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Brooks.
Okay, we have Ms. Johnson here for a curriculum update.
Okay. Hello, everyone. As for the curriculum update, one of the things that we have submitted for board approval is our instructional management system. Like any great organization, there's a system. That system actually includes the instructional delivery model. It includes the pacing guide. It includes the curriculum drive, our high quality instructional material, the supplemental material that will be used, also our program implementations that's required to meet all the necessary standards. So the instructional management system is required for any district that's not performing at its highest level. And even though I feel that we're on our way, we're not there yet. So we have to have a board-approved instructional management system that encompasses everything. So all of the policies that have been approved, by you all already in the past will hang under the umbrella of that system. Also, our July 17th through 21st training that we're grateful that you all approved. It was so successful. The energy that the teachers had, I cannot even describe. We're excited. The instructional, the high quality instructional material training, it encompassed the whole 9 yards that any new teacher would need going into the class. It will have their lesson plans built in. The pacing is evidence-based. We did not choose it without doing our proper research. Looking at the ED report and the ESSA requirement, we chose the highest program that was recommended by MDE after they did their research. So we're excited about implementing that on this year. Our good cause exemption for our third grade babies, district-wide, we have 15 that met the requirements for that. That would be put in MSAS, and those students will be able to be promoted. As far as the district-wide parent meeting for third grade, last year we had it in September. This year we are having it in August because we want to make sure that the word get out there in the message, and also the support around literacy. So we have a high focus on literacy. You all approved us to put our RFPs for. Those 4 RFPs that were approved, they have already gone through the e-bidding process on today. So when schools start, we already have the screening program, our testing platform, our English learner support, and also our reading and literacy support. And although sometimes, we look at our library and they may seem antiquated, but because of the program that we're looking to incorporate, they will have access to at least 10,000 books through that program. Okay, I think I said a lot. Okay, yes, and we're excited also about the principal meeting. It went very well today, where the curriculum department met with the principal. We're thankful for the executive team that allowed that opportunity to be set aside. So the curriculum encompassed a lot, but everyone had an opportunity to up front so that we can be proactive on everything, express what it is that we're expecting to see in regards to curriculum, even in the building, and also to share our goals and everything that we're looking for. So that meeting was successful, and we're looking forward to the new teacher meeting on tomorrow to be successful as well. That's the curriculum update.
So, Mrs. Johnson, you seem very excited and optimistic. I think it's starting to rub off on me a little bit. You did mention, just for clarification, when we're talking about the libraries, you use the term antiquated, correct? Correct? Just another reason why we need some new facilities for our students. I just want that clarification.
Okay.
Colleagues, any questions for Mr. Brooks or Mrs. Johnson?
One or two. Ms. Johnson, from the data that we got back from the third graders,
Yes.
is it feasible to have a teacher's aide from K through 3?
Yes, that's one of the things, and I'm so glad we're on one accord with the board on that. We actually wrote in the DHA grant for the content specialist that will service the third grade. So the third grade, for the first time, will have assistance in that regard, and also we are working. Our focus is all grades, of course, but we have a real focus. My heart is with our third grade babies in their gate test.
Okay.
So we're definitely working on literacy support on every end to make sure that, number one, that they receive the training, the ones that will be working with them, that we have a strong collaboration between our literacy coaches that's coming from the state, our literacy fellows that's sponsored through DHA, and also our assistants as part of the district.
Okay, how does the Bailey group support the K through 3 group?
Okay, right now we're not, Bailey is not in the district.
Okay. Okay, what about DHA? Delta Health Alliance?
DHA, one of the things they focus on is in regards to third grade, they have what you call literacy fellows. Now, literacy fellows, they target all students that have 463 on the initial screening. So 463 is not on grade level. They don't work with our retainees or SPED in that sense, but they work with those students that we may refer to as bubble students, those that with a little push can actually make it through the gate. So they do it through pull-out. They do not pull out from the core subjects, but they will pull out in other areas to get them that intervention that they need.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Johnson, who
Yeah.
provided the training for the principals today?
Huh?
Who provided the training for the principals today?
The training was provided by the awesome curriculum team right here in the district. It was, and when I tell you the energy was real, we covered everything from the instructional model that would be used, the resources, how to access it, for us, the binders, just the whole 9 yards, from testing and professional development to everything. So it was an awesome training today. It was actually from 9 to 3:30, just in time to get it ready for you all.
Question, Mr. Brooks. During those trainings, are the participants allowed to provide feedback later on so that we can better serve them or touch on some things that they need more assistance with?
Yes, we sent out an e-survey at the end of the training through Google Doc. And so that feedback, because you were right, we always want to inspect in a sense so we can always improve on what we're offering. Yes.
Any other questions, colleagues? Seeing none. Mr. Brooks? Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're in the process of planning a board retreat. The tentative dates for that are August 11th through Saturday, August 12th. Do you have a handout in your package? Are there any questions about that?
I just have a concern. I actually have a number of concerns about this retreat. I don't think it's real prudent or good stewardship of taxpayer money to have a retreat with an interim superintendent when it's gonna make long-term effects for the school system. And I don't understand why we're going away from this room to have the retreat. I certainly think that's a problem. We are all about transparency, and I think the public needs to be aware of what decisions and what's going on. But I just don't even see the rationale in our having a retreat to plan for something that has so much long-term effects, and we're not working with the real superintendent.
Mr. Brooks, you don't have to respond. So, Ms. Abraham, I'm very concerned and taken aback by your comments, considering that previously the board had discussed a retreat away from the city, and if I'm not mistaken, you were in support of. Now, all of a sudden, this interim superintendent is meeting the demands or the requests of the board to have a retreat in a different location. Again, that's the point of a retreat. Now you're saying that that's not advantageous, or it is not showing good stewardship of taxpayers' dollars?
I don't believe that. Then I have a real concern of why we're having a retreat now without a permanent superintendent. At least the superintendent's gonna be here for 4 years.
Understood, but
Otherwise, it makes me no difference in terms of me, where we have the retreat. I have a problem for the lack of transparency.
how is there a lack of transparency? The retreat is
Well, I
not
think
closed.
it's hard for, well, you know, is it gonna be over Facebook? Is it
Well,
gonna
I don't know if that's a discussion that we've had with the superintendent or Ms. Rimmer.
Well, if it's
that's
not
an
gonna be
option.
over Facebook, then you're closing out a number of people from knowing what's going on.
I'm in full support of it, but correct me if I'm wrong, when the retreat was planned for in the Jackson, Hines, Rankin area, you were in support of that,
Dr.
correct?
Bailey, not necessarily. I remember asking the question, why would we have to go down there? Do you remember that?
I remember me making the conversation about having a retreat on Sunday, and I attend church.
Because you were really
And-
concerned
and-
about going to church.
Correct, and
But
you
my
made the
concern-
comment,
my
Ms.
concern
Abraham,
was-
may I? You made the comment that you can attend mass anywhere,
That's exactly right.
so therefore you were in support of that, right?
No, I was not. I didn't care about, where I had to find a place to go to church. I will do that. My concern is that we would be using taxpayer money to go to any of this, to go to the casino, to take all of the people here that went, whether it was in Jackson or whether it's here. But my question was, I asked then, why would we have to go out of town?
Duly noted. Any other comments or feedback, colleagues?
Ms. Abraham, I am for real. I might be short term, but I am for real. I
I
am.
understand that, Mr. Interim Superintendent, but we're talking about decisions
I know what you're
that
talking
will be
about, but you say a
long-term.
real superintendent.
And I don't think that
I
you're-
am for real.
Well, I'm not saying you're not for real, but forgive me for that that adjective. I am saying that we need to be thinking about the future for our children. And it doesn't need to be decisions made lightly, nor with any petty stuff involved in those decision-making processes.
Any other comments or feedback, colleagues? Thank you much. Mr. Superintendent.
Barney, is your discussion, the board.
So Attorney Palmer, are you able to communicate with us?
Dr. Bailey, what was your question? I couldn't hear you.
Are you in a position where you can talk with us regarding the bond issue? I believe Mr. Brooks does have on here the recommendation for an architect at 12.12. But outside of that, do you have any other comments regarding the bond discussion?
Not really, other than we did do a request for qualifications. We had several submissions to the district. I think our deadline was July the 6th, 2023. And Mr. Brooks had received, or his office had received those submissions. I cannot advise as to what Mr. Brooks has taken action on at this particular point in time. I presume that he may be in a position to make a recommendation to the board based upon his review of the documentation. But the main thing that needs to be accomplished as soon as possible is for the board to select an architect and then communicate to the architect the vision of whatever project that the board wishes to proceed with. That's where we are currently.
Any other comments, colleagues? Anything you would like to add, Mr. Brooks?
Not at this time.
Number 7.
Number 7, we're supposed to have a speaker, Ms. Earlene Anderson, to discuss Mississippi Tobacco Free Coalition, make a presentation, but she's not here.
So she will be here to your knowledge on Tuesday for the board meeting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, colleagues? Number 8, Mr. Brooks.
Ms. Evans will be here at the regular board meeting to make a presentation for parents of public schools in Greenwood and LaFleur County.
And I will say that Mr. Brooks and I had the opportunity to meet with Ms. Evans and Ms. Lula Moore regarding parents for public schools, and they are very optimistic in working with the district and working with our parents to make sure that we are engaging them and having the parents understand that they too play a very important role in the education of our children.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes,
were there
ma'am.
other board members? I was not invited to the meeting like that.
Ms. Evans did not invite you to the meeting, Ms. Abraham.
Okay, I would expect you as the president to say we have other board members.
Well, again, she's coming to make a presentation. She simply
Then I
made
can
Mr.
ask her
Brooks
a
and I abreast of what her presentation was going to be about. Anything else, Mrs. Abraham? Mr. Brooks?
Ms. Washington is here to give us a 16th session report.
Good evening,
Good
board.
afternoon, Ms. Washington.
Information I have, excuse me, can you hear
I
me?
was saying the mic wasn't on. It sounds
Okay.
like it is.
The information that I have for the board, upon review of the two items they had on the last board meeting, which one of them did not go, I guess you can say it wasn't really presented to the board because I didn't quite understand what he was trying to say, but I kind of got a feel for what's going on with that. And that was that first section of land where there was no, I think it was the Flora Hunting Club, they didn't want to be at the amount that the board had requested. And so I wanted to re-advertise for that. The other one, a gentleman with DY Diddy, he received a check back, but he wanted to know if it was okay with the board to pay the amount he was leasing last year for, which was $10,000, and he wanted to know if he could do a private contract for the $10,000 versus rebidding. But I informed him that I would have to take that to the board. But I reminded him of the prior year he was paying $13,000. So I said, well, I'll let that be the discretion of the board whether to re-advertise or to negotiate with him. He mentioned something about the law, but the law says that if he put in a bid, he had the right to do match the bid, but there was only one bid. So I would have to get with Attorney Palmer to make sure of that we are following the law to the letter when it comes to that. But I'm thinking with the one bid, we have to re-advertise, or you can do a private contract with him, and those are the only two options you have with that. But in looking at some of the data I already had, I found that there were really 7 leases that should have been on there that needed to be bid for. One piece of property, Mr. Ainsworth told us in the last meeting we had with him that he discovered that this piece of property was not bid for, but that's been since 2019, and I informed him, and I said, 2019, you were here. So, but it still hadn't been bidded on. So I wanted to go ahead and try to bid on that property as well. I think that those particular motions are in there, and I don't know if it's because Mr. Ainsworth was on the outside, but as far as the advertising, I could go ahead and do the advertising based on the information I had already received from the board saying that they wanted to rebid, but because the gentleman wanted to match what he had paid the prior years, so therefore I said, well, the board needed an opportunity to say yes or no to that.
Ms. Washington.
Yes.
In regard to the bid where the bidder provided was paying $10,000, what was the? I heard you say $13,000 a couple of years prior, but currently, what is that person paying currently?
Currently $10,000. He only bid $7,750.
He bid how much?
He bid $7,750.
And currently is paying
$10,000.
Okay.
Right. And the time, like I said, the time before that he was paying $13,000. So.
Yes, okay, thank you. I just wanted to get a little clarity.
Any other questions, colleagues?
I have one.
Okay.
Ms. Washington, are we in a position to know what acreage is for 16 section land in the Mississippi Delta only because it varies from geographical locations in the state of Mississippi?
Okay.
And also hunting land. I'm a member of several different hunting clubs, and I know that land is quite expensive. So are we getting the maximum amount?
You're getting minimum based on looking at, I compared it to other districts.
Right.
And they set a range and say, okay, this is the least we will accept. some of them start off with like an acreage amount, and then others have a dollar amount that they say they would not accept a bid less than that.
Right.
So it would be up to the discretion of the board, and I did want to bring that to you, looking at other districts and how they do it, because I see that, in which I did a report, and you haven't received it yet, because I was still trying to finalize some information, but I noticed a lot of monies that are just going out the door. And a gentleman talked to me, I think it was sometime last week, and he made a comment to me that he met with Mr. Ainsworth on the outside and made a deal with him on a private bid, since nobody had bidded on the property. And I think he came back with a $1,500 bid. But when I looked at the other date, I think that same property was like $20-some thousand.
Right.
So I have a concern with that. And I think the board should have a concern with that. But like I said, this is free information that he gave me. I don't know him, he didn't know me. But he knew that I was dealing with the 16th section at this point.
Mrs. Washington, may I ask a question? Are you
Yes.
finished or you have something else? I can wait till you get finished.
I'm finished.
I do know, I want to say maybe in our June meeting or July work session, there were two gentlemen that came before the board in regards to, I want to say, potentially extending their lease because they had made some improvements on their property, and I don't believe the board has acted on that yet. I could be mistaken, but if you don't mind, can you check into that, because I don't want to do a disservice to those gentlemen if it's something that we should be doing and something
Right.
that we need to do.
Okay, you're right.
And with all that you've talked about, please consult with Attorney Palmer just to make
Yes.
sure that we're following the
Yes,
law.
I definitely will consult with him.
Thank you. Any other questions, colleagues? Thank you, Mrs. Washington. Mr. Brooks.
We've already heard from, Mr. Pipper. Are there any public comment? Regular. Special education budget for 2023-24. Are there any questions?
Mr. Brooks, do you know if this amount is consistent with last year, or if it was an increase or a decrease by chance?
Do not know. I will check.
Ms. Parker? Okay.
Ms. Parker.
Colleagues, are there any questions from the board? Mr.
And-
Brooks?
Interim superintendent recommends that the school board approve the 23-24 special education budget allocation in the total amount of $1,741,889. The amount for the IDEA Part B is $1,675,559, and the amount for preschool Part C is $66,330. The exact carryover amount for IDEA and preschool is unknown at this time due to the splitting of the years.
12.2, Mr. Brooks.
Performance Based Incentive Plan for 23-24. Greenwood Early Learning Collaboration. Are there any questions?
So, and again, I don't know if this is, if you can, or if Dr. Coleman, this might be Dr. Gary's area, but with the table that was provided, it appears to some degree that many of our pre-K teachers, as well as the assistants, did an outstanding job, or a really, really good job with those students. I do know, looking at the information, some of the classes, just hypothetically, just say 25 or 25 of those students met whatever the benchmark was that is slated for their grade level And just recognizing, like I said, everybody did a great job, but it appears that Ms. Annie Valso and Ms. Keandra Smart really did some really good work in their classes. So I'll just say kudos to those teachers as well as all the other teachers on this list. Are there any questions, colleagues?
They are personally on the course, on the course in a workshop now, and they will be able to provide more information at the regular meeting if you desire.
All right, 12.3, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of the equipment disposal at the alternative school. Any questions?
So I know lately we've been discarding a lot of equipment. Is this equipment just old and dated or just inoperable? Do you know if the equipment is old or just inoperable or both? Okay. Any other questions, colleagues?
Proper water damage too.
Mrs. Lewis?
Do we have any information on the things you would like to purchase? Because it looks like the report is missing that information.
I don't have any at this present time, but I can get it for you. Usually we will have a truck to come out and pick it up.
So do you know if they're salvaged or recycled, either or? Do you know, Mr. Brooks or Dr. Cole?
So each year, you have to go through your assets, and they have to be identified, salvageable, damaged, usable, surplus, whatever. So after board approval that they may be disposed, then our technology coordinator will view or look at the equipment. If we can salvage parts, we do that. Otherwise, he disposes of it the correct way. Sometimes it requires that we have someone to come. Companies will come to recycle, and sometimes it's such that we can't use it and we just dispose of it and we trash it. But we're not allowed to dispose of it without board approval. But this is supposed to be a recurring event that we review our assets and deem it or assess it as good, fair, or whatever.
Any other comments or questions, colleagues? Thank you, Dr. Cole. 12.4, Mr. Brooks.
Third grade teacher intervention support. We do have Ms. Johnson here to speak on that if you would like. If you have any questions.
So, Ms. Johnson, is this one of the items that went out for bids, maybe, or something? No? Okay, I'm wrong. Okay, I'm sorry. Do you want to speak about it briefly?
Yes. Our third grade babies, and we know that we're dealing with the 2-year achievement gap. Won't get into that due to the virtual platform. And these are our kindergarten babies when the pandemic first hit, and then that full virtual year when it was first grade. So a lot of the Arthur Gillingham and the multisensory instructional demand, they missed that. So we're playing catch up. So what we need for those ones that did not make it through the gate, we need additional intervention support for the ones that are actually in third grade back again. So this support here will work with those teachers that's having to deal with those students along with our rising third graders as well. And it's a task, and a lot of teachers do not want to take that weight on, because it is a weight to deal with holding their lives in their hand to the point that if they do not perform, they can't make it through this gate. So the gate is a big issue now. So this will provide additional support in regards to intervention support for those that were retained.
Question, Ms. Johnson, I did notice this summer that we moved forward with is it a second grade?
Right. Yes,
for our children?
yes. For the first time, we wanted to be proactive instead of reactive, so we focus on our second grade students. The second grade students that we identified were based upon data. It was based upon their performance on their third 9-week benchmark exam, along with our EOY progress monitoring. So we used the data to identify those students, and we wanted to get them a head start in the race to the gate. So we wanted to make sure that they were acclimated with their teachers, with the instructional routines. So generally in August, it's like the third week before the students actually get to a point where they know their teacher or they're comfortable with the instructional routine. We actually introduce them to that early this summer. We're going to track those students, because chances are, because we focus on that bubble set, that those are the ones that DHA will be providing. And mind you, we're still working on the ones that did not make it through the gate. So we're providing a safety net and a head start for our third grade students. So we call it the Rising Third Grade Camp. Yes.
Great idea.
Thank you.
To support our up-and-coming third grade students for the 23-24 year. And we want to do all that we can, Ms. Johnson and Mr. Brooks and Dr. Coleman, all that we can to ensure that our parents, because see, as I see it, now we have third graders, well, those that would have been third or fourth graders coming back, and second graders moving forward, and which creates a more classroom teachers for third grade.
Yes.
And so I just want us to be very, very proactive, even with the training of parents, to, to make sure that our students are fully and totally supported this year, moving out, our second graders moving toward, and then those third graders that are being retained.
Yes,
It's a soft spot for me, but I do know that with the team that we have in place, we can get it done.
and one of the things that I just gotta say this, our students are more than capable. Prior to pre-pandemic, I was looking at that data, and that's from the Floyd County to Greenwood Public. The pass rate was like 90% for both school districts. So we know, and I dare not say that it's a learning loss. That's why I use the word achievement gap, because they were not introduced in a sense to it, because they cannot use the different approaches and instruction that was needed because of the pandemic that none of us chose. So what we're doing now, we're getting our babies back to where they were exceeding the point that they were in before the pandemic hit. And I know that it's going to happen because they're capable of doing it.
Well, personally, I appreciate that second grade, third grade camp. I really did appreciate that. And kudos to Mr. Brooks, Dr. Coleman, Mrs. Johnson for moving in that direction for our students this summer. Thank you.
Yeah, I do have a comment as it pertains to another consulting firm. If you all can recall last month, when we approved those increases, we were told that we were not going to be hiring any more consultants. So, can someone elaborate on that?
You were told that we wouldn't be hiring as many, we were gonna cut down, we didn't say we were gonna hire any.
Was this person, was this particular, that's not my question. What, was a bid process necessary for this one?
No.
Did other people apply?
Not that I know of.
I thought that your comment, Mr. Brooks, was that it would, there'd be no need, we'd have in-house people that would do this. I didn't hear that. Maybe I missed it.
I said we would have in-house people, which we do. They conducted a workshop today. That
And you
saved
didn't
us
say
a
that
lot
we
of
didn't have
money.
a need for, did you not
I
say we
said,
don't have a need for other
Not
consultants?
as much or many.
I
I
didn't
said
hear
we could
that.
save on the cost of,
I didn't hear that.
that's what I said.
Any other questions or comments, colleagues? 12.5, Mr. Brooks.
Fixed access. Mr. Mitchell's not here, but if you have any questions, he'll be on board.
Any questions, colleagues? 12.6, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of travel out of state. Are there any questions about that?
I wouldn't say I have any questions. I would just express that I think it's a great opportunity for exposure for our students who have done a phenomenal job whenever they've gone out to represent the school district. I just think it's incumbent on us to make sure that we proceed out of an abundance of caution, making sure that we have enough chaperones to join the students, as well as maybe sending a safety officer if at all possible. I do know that we're probably understaffed in that area right now, but certainly something to consider if the board moves forward with approving this request. Colleagues, any other concerns? 12.7, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of GLC SD Mass Corps fundraisers.
Mrs. Lewis.
I think his, whoever submitted this needs to be more specific, as far as timelines and just more specific information on some of these fundraisers that they're proposing to have.
So is that something that you can ask, Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
So for example, I agree with the timeline, but just say, and then hypothetically, Mrs. Lewis, if 20 students sold X amount, it would yield this amount. Is that about right, Ms. Lewis? Can you request that for us?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mrs. Lewis.
And also, Mr. Palmer, Attorney Palmer,
I'm here.
are there any specifics in the fundraising policies? Because it seems as if we have had a whole lot of fundraisers. And I just don't think that's good. Maybe we need to minimize those, but if we have all of our schools looking to do 8 to 10 fundraisers, I think that's just a little excessive.
And Ms. Lewis, your point is well taken, but as you understand, within the school setting, we have different organizations that are a part of the respective school environments, and fundraising activities generally are a good way in order for students to raise funds for different activities or different experiences they have from an educational standpoint. The unfortunate thing is that some of your parents are just not financially able to come out of pocket to pay for different activities that are going on at the different schools. And generally the person who is over the school, i.e. the principal, would or should have control over from a discretionary call as to what fundraising activities would be permitted on the school building level. But I do understand your point, but I'm unaware of anything in the policy that we have presently that restricts a certain number of fundraising activities from school to school. Because in fact, what would be the measuring rod that you would utilize to say, well, 5 fundraising activities at a school are the maximum that you can conduct when you have 15 different organizations that need to raise funds for different activities that they're trying to do at the schools. So that's the only thing that I could submit for your consideration based on what you've asked.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but maybe we need to make wiser choices as to what kinds of fundraisers are chosen, because we don't want to nickel and dime people all year long. So,
Yes, ma'am.
you know, there are better fundraisers than others. You know, if
And-
I do something, I need $1 for this. I mean, we all know that that's not going to take care of what's needed. So maybe someone should make sure that they are choosing fundraisers that are going to be successful to cover whatever activities they're trying to take part in.
Yes, ma'am. And I would presume, and of course, I'm in no position to speak for Mr. Brooks as interim superintendent, but if that is a concern as expressed from one board member, several board members, or all board members, I'm sure, are confident that that would be a conversation that he would be willing to have with the principals that serve our district.
And Attorney Palmer, speaking to what Mrs. Lewis just mentioned, for example, on the list of fundraisers, number 7 is a car wash. And, you know, I would hope nobody has any ill intentions, but how do we regulate that or account for monies raised at a car wash that more than likely would occur, you know, not on school grounds and outside of school hours? And I'm not asking for a response, but that was just something that concerned me based upon Mrs. Lewis's comments. And then number 2, colleagues, because again, this was before Mr. Brooks's time, and maybe Dr. Coleman or Ms. Rimmer can help, but on page 73, when it lists the fundraisers, it makes a mention of a Mass Choir Booster Association. I don't recall the board ever approving such, or if it ever was something that was presented to the board. I know that we have to be careful with booster associations and booster clubs. I understand why they were created, and I think they're needed, but we must make sure that we're following the law as it pertains to that. Do you,
And Dr. Bailey, if I may just give a brief response.
Yes, sir.
To your second point, I can't answer that, of course, because I don't know anything about that particular organization or association as a booster club or whatever it's characterized as, but I do share your sentiments on that particular matter. Regarding controls of fiscal responsibility regarding these fundraisers, again, if it is held at the school level, then the principal and or the sponsor of that particular organization should implement controls as to make sure that funds are accounted for any fundraising activity. And there should be actually receipts that are turned in to reflect what monies have been raised as a part of whatever fundraising activities that they're conducting.
Thank you.
One other thing, and I don't really want to get into the specifics, but number 7 on here, car wash Saturdays. What's in place if someone accuses a student of damaging their car? So that's something else that we would need to think about. I mean, because it could easily happen.
Yes, ma'am. I have no argument with that whatsoever.
Any other comments or concerns, colleagues? All right. Mr. Brooks, 12.8, I believe.
Approval of students transfer requests for district employees.
Mr. Brooks, on, I think the second one, yes, the second one, which is page 80 for me, there's no student name. It has the school's name in place of the student's name. You see where I'm at, Ms. Rimmer? So just if that can be corrected or updated before the meeting on Tuesday for board action. You see where it says student information and it has name, Mr. Brooks? It's toward the middle of the page. And it has the name of the school versus a student's name?
Yes.
If that can be updated. Any other comments, colleagues? Next, Mr. Brooks, 12.9.
Approval of the request to be released from the Greenwood Board Consolidated School District.
Now, Attorney Palmer, I'm gonna ask that you look at this document to make sure that it's sufficient. I believe we may have accepted something like this previously, but just want to make sure that you put your eyes on it before the board takes action on it.
Yes, sir.
And that's page 87 of what I have online. Any other go ahead, Ms.
I
Lewis.
think when we did this, we asked that the district that they were trying to enroll in, if they would provide us some information, that they would be accepted, if I'm not mistaken.
Any feedback on that, Attorney Palmer, or is that something that we can ask, or is it appropriate?
I'm sorry, I could not hear Mrs. Lewis's question.
I didn't have a question, I was just commenting on, what Dr. Bailey said. I believe the last time we, dealt with a situation like this, it was required that the parents bring us some type of documentation showing us that the child would be accepted into the school that they're trying to register before the release would be, granted on this end.
Generally, they will provide some evidence of being accepted in whatever prospective school district that they are being admitted to. Otherwise, you have no guarantee that they're even registering for school.
Take a look at page 87 whenever you have time in O agendas.
This is the handwritten document.
Yes, sir.
I would advise the interim superintendent to or his designee to follow up with that requested documentation.
Is that okay, Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Any other concerns, colleagues? 12.9, Mr. Brooks. Oh, I'm sorry. We just did it. I'm sorry. 12.10. Yes, sir. I apologize.
Approval of the Mike Answorth contract.
Are there any questions, colleagues? Attorney Palmer, have you had a chance to review this document yet?
Not in its totality.
All right. 12.11, Mr. Brooks.
Fundraiser for Bankston Elementary.
Are there any questions, colleagues?
Do we know why, what these fundraising funds will be used for?
I do not know more than what's in there.
Can that information be provided, Mr. Brooks, by Tuesday if possible?
It's a student activity fund, this be for various use, but I can have him here Tuesday to tell you about it.
Okay, thank you.
12.12, Mr. Brooks.
Recommendation for an architect.
And this was included in those documents that you gave us from last week.
Yes.
Any questions, colleagues? 12.3, Mr. Brooks.
Discussion to advertise for superintendent.
So colleagues, if you recall, during the previous board meeting, of course, we have to adhere to Mississippi Code as it pertains to selecting a superintendent. But if there were any additional requirements that the board, or criteria that the board would like to be included in that job announcement, we were asked to turn that in to Mrs. Bremer by the 25th, if I'm not mistaken. However, if you have some additional criteria that you would like to present, please submit it to Ms. Bremer so the board can take a look at it and take action on it, as we need to go ahead and get that position posted.
At the
Comments?
last meeting, I had said that I would like to go through MSBA to do the vetting of qualified applicants. Is that just a moot point at this time?
There was no motion. I mean, if you want to make a motion on that at the board meeting, you're welcome to.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions or concerns, colleagues? 12-14, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of the revised 23-24 district calendar.
Is there a particular reason why the calendar had to be revised?
The one that y'all approved didn't have enough days in it for staff and teachers.
Okay.
And students.
And we do have an election coming up. I noticed that wasn't included, I think August the 8th. So have we started making preparations, considering some of our schools are voting precincts?
Yeah.
Previous calendar though, I believe.
What was it, Ms. Rim? Do you know the August 8th? The August the 8th date? The November date. Colleagues, do you have any questions? If you can, Mr. Brooks or Dr. Coleman, will school be in while the voting? And we're fine with the voting? Okay. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Any other questions, colleagues? And of course, safety as it pertains to those buses, students being dropped off. Okay.
Didn't work out.
All right, I want to make sure. All right, number 13.1, Mr. Brooks.
Professional learning plan proposal. We'd like to add 1215 proposal from transportation department.
That's what we have here?
Yeah,
Okay.
Ms. Hudson is here to speak on that. Ms. Hudson, would you come up, please?
So colleagues, you should have a document on your desk that was separate from your packet.
Good evening.
Hi, Ms. Hudson.
Waters truck will be offering some professional development to the transportation departments throughout the state of Mississippi. They're having an educational plant tour, and we were invited to come along and tour the plant for purposes of looking at new programs and items on the bus, safety features, and giving them input and feedback on what we need as transportation directors to supply adequate transportation for our students in the state of Mississippi. So we're asking that we be approved to travel. This is an all-expense paid trip, with the exception of us having to get to Memphis, from the district to Memphis. And by no means, if the district don't want to pay for our travel, we'll do it ourselves.
No, we're gonna pay for you to go where you need to go if we can afford it. But we appreciate the offer. The district has attended something similar before.
Yes, we went to Empire back in 2020. We did the Empire trip, and we're going with Waters International this time around.
And with both you and Mr. Ted being away, the buses will still run, right? The bus drivers are not going to take sick on us, are they?
Yes, but that is Mr. Ware will be traveling. Our shop foreman will be traveling.
Okay, I apologize. I'm sorry. Are there any other questions, colleagues? Thank you, Ms. Hudson. 13.1 now, Mr. Brooks.
Professional learning plan proposal.
And this is the standard proposal that we have to do every year, right?
Yes.
Are there any questions, colleagues? And I know it's a lot to kind of read through, so. Uh, 13.2, Mr. Brooks.
Instructional management system plan. Ms. Johnson is still here if you would like to have any questions.
Colleagues, are there any questions for Mrs. Johnson? Question, Ms. Johnson. When you talk about blueprints under the college and career readiness standards, can you give me an idea, if you are aware, of what that may be? The blueprints under college and career readiness?
Okay, you mean what? Okay, when they say blueprint, it gives like according to each standard, it tells like how many items that the students will be assessed upon.
Okay.
So once it identifies the number of items that they will be assessed upon, that's how we come up with our priority standards.
Okay.
Because you get, the focus of the test would be according to the blueprint.
Okay.
So it's like a guide, on how to build a house. Like
I learned something new today. Thank you. Any other questions, colleagues?
No question.
Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. Mr. Brooks, 14.1.
Approval of 2023-24 personnel report.
Are there any questions or concerns, colleagues? Seeing none. 14.2, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of the 2023-24 fall sport recommendations.
Are there any questions or concerns, colleagues? Mr. Brooks, I'll just voice my concern. As I've voiced since I've been on the board, I certainly have a concern based upon feedback from my constituents with an athletic director also serving as a head coach at one of the specific schools. In addition to that, looking at the supplements, they vary for the most part based upon schools. Of course, with the students the coaches at Greenwood High making more than the coaches at Amanda Elsie and LaFleur. And of course, in the past, the rationale has been based upon the classification of the school. But even with that information, I remind the community and my colleagues here on the board that the principals are paid one fee based upon qualifications, regardless of what classification that school is in, how many students they have. But more importantly, it's interesting how the head coach's salaries differ, the assistant coach's salary differ, but when you get down to cheer coach, volleyball coach, and cross-country coach, and even band director, all of those salaries are the same, regardless of what school those persons work. And even when you're looking at cheer and volleyball, more than likely those are female coaches. That could lead to discrimination in some sense, where you have other coaches at this particular school making X, Y, and Z, again, allegedly based upon classification, yet you're paid one set fee across the board as compared to the other coaches. So that's my little soapbox as it pertains to the recommendations that have been presented. Are there any questions, colleagues, comments?
Thank you, Dr. Bailey.
All right, seeing none.
I'd like to make one or two. Looking at this scale, head football coach, I'm looking at Greenwood High, the middle school, Elsie High, and LaFleur. Now, I would like to see someone take a turn around the Delta area and look at schools in their comparison, meaning 3A schools in this county and 3A schools in other counties, and compare the salary. Because I'm looking at this, even though I coached from 75 to 08, which is a long time. I never made any more than $2,500. But I'm not gonna sit here and say that $2,500 would be sufficient for these guys. This is not compatible with the rest of the people in this area. And if we're going to be competitive, and take a look at it now, how many people are jumping up and down to come to the Florida school district and want to coach sports, unless they are just out of school and need a start. So what I'm saying is we need to take an overall look at all of these salaries, and we need to make sure that we have somewhere in the policy that this is the way that the breakdown is supposed to go. Because some people say, well, you know, Greenwood got more students, so the headache is larger. I don't care. You still are responsible for kids out there. And I've coached and under me, had one kid to get his neck broke. Now, I don't know whether you all know how serious that is. And I don't know whether you all know how the lawyers come at you in a situation like that. And the first thing that they want to see is that helmet and those shoulder pads. And the helmet does not have that Nazi sticker on the back of it and it's updated, you in hot water. And the same thing with the shoulder pad. So I'm looking for someone to come in, not saying that we don't have the person here to do this, but as an athletic director, you got to see all of this stuff, and all of this stuff got to be on an equal keel. Now, if that's the case, then I'm fine, I can ride with it. But if not, then let's please take a look at what's happening around us and look at the amount of money that other people are getting in different districts.
Any other comments, colleagues? Seeing none, 14.3, Mr. Brooks. It looks like something may have been submitted in this place.
I think so. We will update it as
Okay.
we submit it out of mine.
So we'll go to 14.4.
Recommendations for school-based administrative claiming coordinator.
Is this similar, if you know Mr. Brooks or Ms. Rimmer, to what Dr. Miller was doing for us at one point? Okay, it is.
Same thing.
Any other comments, colleagues? 14.5, Mr. Brooks.
Recommendation of Assistant Superintendent of District and School Operation.
So according to the summary, we're recommending the change of the title because it was approved already.
Yes.
Any questions regarding 14.5, colleagues? $14.6, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of job description.
Any questions, concerns, colleagues? What? Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to know if there were any changes to the job description from the other times or other meetings that the description was presented.
There were some changes. I can't tell you what they were right now, but there were some changes.
14.7, Mr. Brooks. I'm sorry,
question.
Mrs. Lewis.
Based on the other assistant superintendent, are there any duties that's overlapping, I mean, that's not overlapping, being duplicated?
No,
operations. So,
Curriculum.
okay.
14.7, colleagues. I'm sorry, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of the revisal 2023-2024 GLCSD organizational chart. Charts will be submitted.
So, you'll provide it before the meeting, it'll be
Yes.
uploaded? Okay. all right.
Yes.
Number 15, Mr. Brooks.
Monthly financial report. Ms. Johnson is here to address that if you would like.
You gonna let Ms. Thomas, Thomas off the hook tonight?
Ms. Johnson has been doing such a fantastic job.
Gonna put over the money.
Ms. Thomas.
Go give us an overview, Ms. Thomas, we're where we need to be. We just spent too much.
Well, we doing better, so.
You don't sound like Ms. Johnson. She's just excited and optimistic.
Right now, we're not doing a lot of spending. We're just trying to be very cautious on, as far as spending. Trying to just really do necessities right now, and we will do some things, but right now we're just focused on what the needs of making sure that the students have what they need when they come back, as far as maintenance and everything else, supplies. They have started purchasing items for students, and we're just supporting them and making sure that they have what they're needing, so that we are ready for students on August the 7th.
Has the maintenance department stopped spending so much money yet?
Yeah, it's like.
Slightly, okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna knock on wood.
Hopefully we won't have a lot.
Yeah.
We did a lot of it last year, so hopefully, we can cut in that area where it's not a whole lot.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Moore?
I do have a question, Ms. Thomas, in regard to added expenditures to the budget. Have we, well, I know we're not even a month into the new year, but I just want us to be mindful of the amount of money that the budget is what we have. Okay, I just need for us to be mindful of adding to the budget, and then if we have to add, if it's added, where will funds come from? And I think going forward, there will be a lot of my comments or questions, just a notice to you, as things arise that come before us. I would like for us to, I'm going to be asking the questions of where will these funds come from, if it seems that we will be adding to the budget.
Okay.
So moving forward, just questions.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Ms. Thomas or Mr. Brooks, help me out a little bit, and excuse my ignorance. Our extracurricular activities, the district has a budget for that, but say for instance, you spend out money on different schools for different sports, band, what have you. When those schools have events at their specific school, that money is not put back into the district account, it goes to that specific school's student activity account. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is that a best practice? Because, and I'm just saying, because you'll always be in the negative, you're always spending out and you're never putting anything back.
But they never make.
What is spent? Okay.
Question, Ms. Thomas, claim number 955787, page 1
said, Ms. Lewis?
165, claim number 955-787.
Did you say 787 or?
787.
Okay. That's, Mass.
Mass?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions, colleagues?
Next budget hearing, will we get a total fund balance that comes from 22-23?
I can give you the projected, we're still closing the books, but I can give you the projected.
That would be great. And then, is it meeting, I think there's a state requirement, if I'm not mistaken, as to the percentage of what that fund balance should be?
Mhm. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Hey, Thomas, make sure we stay
Yeah.
above that percentage as best as possible, okay?
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, any other questions, colleagues? With nothing else, that would be all. Mr. Brooks, you have anything else?
Nothing else.
All right, and of course, we have executive session, which we will enter during our board meeting on Tuesday. Please have a safe trip home, enjoy your evening, and thank you for your time.